So we're going to be talking about de-escalation today. The first thing we're going to focus on is basically how to present yourself. The thing to understand that's not immediately intuitive is that when you're presenting yourself in a stressful and crisis situation, body language and tone can be far more important than the content of your words. We've all been trained to think that the content of our words are primarily what people are going to react to. But the more adrenalized someone is, the more they are in a crisis, the less that becomes true. And the more important your tone and your body language becomes. So, body language first. Basically, for doing de-escalation, breathe from your lower lungs in here, bend your knees, and drop your shoulders. When you get scared, when you get excited, you start breathing from up here, your knees straighten out, and your shoulders rise. So giving yourself the physical cue to drop those shoulders, to drop your breath into your lower lungs, and to drop and bend your knees helps you decrease the amount of adrenaline that you're actually feeling. And it's a way of managing your own adrenaline. So, first thing I do when I walk into a situation, when I'm confronted with something, is I drop. Then I get my hands up. This is sort of universal language for, I don't mean you any harm, but keep your distance, right? I keep my hands up so that I can protect my head if I need to. Whether I'm here or here is not really that different in terms of what I'm doing with my hands. It's significantly different in terms of how that person and how everyone watching it is going to read the situation, right? This clearly says, I'm about to fight you. This clearly says, I don't want any problems. Let's figure this out, right? I'm not standing there like this, completely frightened out of my mind. I'm just trying to keep a little distance between me and someone else. Yeah. This also shows everyone that I don't have anything in my hands, yeah, that my hands are empty. So my body language again, as I come into it, whether I step forward or back, I drop and my hands go up. And that's all. That's basic body language. Then, thinking about how to present yourself, right? Body language as a whole, we're going to break it down to 3 different categories: passive, aggressive, and assertive. I'll demonstrate all of those in a minute. Bud, could you help me out with this? So we're going to just pick some scenario. Bug is going to come up and we'll pick a simple scenario of he's pissed off because he thinks I scratched his car. Yeah? Just a simple everyday scenario that people deal with, and he's yelling at me about that. Go ahead.
Hey man, what the hell are you doing to my car out there? Paid a lot of money.
I'm sorry, just please leave me alone.
I just had it refinished.
I'm really sorry, can you just please leave me alone? So, an example of passive body language, right? The things that you see with passive body language is a turning away from the threat, eyes going down oftentimes, hands, everything's shrinking in on itself, right? The voice becomes pleading, right? No eye contact. That can be manifested much more subtly, just like this, yeah? But people tend to read that, and what it tells them essentially, though that can work, and maybe somebody will feel sorry for you, oftentimes people are going to read that their aggression is working, right? And that they will continue to bully you and to do what they want. Then the opposite extreme, please go ahead. Yeah?
The hell are you doing in my car, man?
What are you talking about? Is there a problem? You want a problem? Let's do this. Yeah. Exactly. Is, right? Chest going out, I'm moving in, hands are up, voice has escalated, really challenging eye contact, right? Clearly escalating the situation, right? And people oftentimes tend to kind of vacillate between the two. They'll get scared, then they'll get angry. They'll get angry, and they'll get shoved or hit and get scared, you know. And the deal is actually to find something in the middle, to find assertiveness. And that can be very challenging, yeah? And takes practice, like anything else takes practice. If you think of this as a physical technique that you actually have to repetitively do so that it'll actually kick in under stress. You may feel very scared on the inside, but as long as you present this way physically and keep your tone halfway decent, it'll still oftentimes work. It'll at least work better than anything else. Does that make sense? So Sometimes when people see me doing this, they go, wow, you're so composed. And inside, I might be freaking out, So I had a coworker of mine with security years later come up to me in a situation where we were threatened by a number of people, where I just walk up to them and I said, look, you can't be doing this here. You need to go. And they went, oh, and I said, did you hear me say that you need to go? I'm not having you do this here. Do you understand me? And they left. And years later we were talking about this. He goes, yeah, I had no trouble backing you because you clearly had a plan. That was my plan. It was late at night, there was no backup for us, they outnumbered us, they were big, and it could have gone badly. But, showing that in any way, shape, or form wasn't going to be helpful, right? And so you just have to believe it. Being assertive, facing this way, it'll make it more obvious. One of the really subtle things is to sink the chin a little bit. Every mammal reads this, going from here to nice happy teacher to this, is the fact that I'm suddenly more serious. All I gotta do is sink my chin, because in most animals this means I'm about to pounce. Right? And instead of getting all the way to here, I'm just doing it very subtly. Right? Just bringing that chin down a little bit, I'm dropping my voice, I'm looking right at you, and I'm telling you that what you're doing is not okay, and you need to stop right now. Right? Practicing this with children and animals is very useful, because they mostly react to body language and tone anyway. They don't care about your words, little kids, right? You can say all kinds of things to them, but how the tone you use and your body language is going to make the difference. So that's basic presentation, just in terms of how you want to present yourself in most crisis situations. Okay, let's go from there. So for this next piece, we're going to take a look at how to assess and how to react to different kinds of situations. We're going to break situations down to 4 categories. Just like anything else in real life cannot really be broken down to 4 categories. It's just a way of thinking about how to react to different situations, right? So please don't think that the 4 categories are somehow real. They're just ways of thinking about real life situations, yes? So, the first situation you're going to be dealing with is when someone is afraid. When someone's afraid, the way they're going to present is oftentimes their eyes will be very big, they'll have tremors, their speech will sometimes be very high, sometimes be very forced, they'll be sweating, usually very pale, and that's what you're going to be able to observe, is them basically being afraid. When someone's afraid, it's really important to make yourself their ally. It doesn't matter whether or not the thing that they're afraid of is actually rational or not. It's going to be a little more of a challenge to make yourself an ally when someone is fearing the invisible helicopters, but to them that is still real, right? And so to talk to them and to say, what is it you need? What is going to make you feel safer is essentially the approach you're going to take with someone like that. And so, for example, a story I always tell with this is I was doing security at a really large event, 5,000-6,000 people. This huge guy was shoving his way through the crowd. It was going to start a fight. And 2 security people got in front of him and said, hey, you need to stop, you need to slow down. And he went right through them. Didn't even slow down. I came up next to him, I looked at him, and I saw he was really afraid. And so I came up and kept pace with him and said, hey, what do you need? What can I help you with? And he said, a kid. I go, you looking for a kid? He goes, yeah. I go, okay, I have a radio, and I took out my radio, and I'm going to help you find that kid. I'm going to get everyone looking for the kid you're looking for. I'm going to help you. What does the kid look like? And he started to go, like this big. I go, can you slow down so I can hear you better? And he started to slow down. I go, give me the exact description. Because what it was now is we were working together to find the kid. And so now he was willing to actually slow down and focus on doing something other than elbowing his way through the crowd. So He was terrified. He had lost a 4-year-old in a crowd of 5,000 to 6,000 people. He had good reason to be terrified. So we helped him find the kid. One of the security people found the kid and brought the kid back. Problem solved, right? I've had other people who were afraid of the invisible helicopters, right? At that point, obviously, it's important if somebody has mental health issues to take them seriously, both in the sense that that fear can really make someone get afraid enough that they could hurt themselves or someone else, and serious in the sense that don't say, oh yeah, I see them too, and don't worry, we'll hide from them over here. They know other people can't see them most of the time. Yes, particularly if they've been experiencing this for a while. So to say, okay, I get that you're afraid of these helicopters. What can I do to help you feel safe? I get that that is real for you, and what can we do? And in this case, I had someone say, I lost my medication, I think this guy grabbed it. Like, okay, what do you normally take? You know, and I'd take them over to the medics, get them in a place where they have a little less stimulus, get them a cup of water, even just kind of calming things down around them will usually settle that stuff down. So the trick is to become an ally, to get them to trust you, and then to work with them to help resolve the situation. So for an example, you're afraid. What's the matter? What can I do to help you?
There's somebody following me, man.
Okay.
They're over there. They're
Okay.
or something.
You know what?
I don't know
Can
what they want.
me, my friends,
I don't know what
help you
Okay.
and make sure that that person doesn't hurt you?
Yeah.
Okay.
I just don't want them following me, man.
Will you walk with me?
Sure.
Will you give me a description of the person so I can radio it in?
Sure. They're wearing black suits, man. They don't have any faces, you know.
Okay.
You know, they have hats on and
I see.
And I know they're back there. I saw them back there.
Do you oftentimes you feel like this a good amount of the time?
Yeah.
What do you normally do that helps you feel safer when you feel like this?
I just try to get away, you know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you take any kind of medication that helps you with that?
Yeah.
Okay. Is it going to help you to go somewhere quieter?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's do that.
Okay.
So that's an example, right, of how to deal with somebody who's afraid, right? You ask leading questions and you get them moving in a way towards something that's going to be more helpful. Yeah? Okay, the next one is going to be frustration. This is a really common one at large events, right? Someone shows up, right? There's no parking. They spend an hour looking for parking. They're already pissed off. They finally park their car illegally, step out of the car to go find their friend. They come back, there's a parking ticket on the car. They finally find a parking spot and then really need to use the bathroom and cut in line at a porta potty, and next thing you know, they're about to get in a fist fight with someone, right? Frustration oftentimes runs high at large events. The trick with frustration, you can't just be an ally to somebody when they're frustrated. Being frustrated by itself isn't a problem. Being frustrated and deciding you're in a fist fight with someone as a way of dealing with it is a problem. And so you have to do both. You have to empathize the very real things that they're frustrated about, and you have to remind them that they are an adult and that even if they're frustrated, they need to deal with that frustration in an appropriate manner. So, for example, in the situation I just laid out, I had this happen, this exact situation. A guy cut in line at a porta potty, the guy he cut in front of was going to get in a fist fight with him over who was going to get in the porta potty next. So I stepped up. I mean, neither one of them were going to get in that porta potty at that rate. So I asked the people in the next line over, I said, look, they're about to get in a fist fight. Do you mind if this guy steps ahead of me? And then I'm going to have a conversation with both of them. So they both got in the porta potty, used the porta potty, felt a lot more mellow by the time they got out of the porta potty. And I asked them to step over and I said, hey, you guys are about to get in a fist fight over who was going to get a porta potty first. Is this going to keep being a problem all through the day? And the guy said, well, you don't understand. I had a lot of trouble finding parking. I go, I hear that. That really sucks. Parking around here is really terrible. I'm really sorry about that. You know, and I'm sorry you got a ticket. And this is a huge event. And a lot of people are really frustrated and are having a lot of problems, and they're not getting in fist fights. And I need you to promise me that you can do the same thing for the rest of the day. Is that possible? Well, you know, you're right. Okay. You know, the empathy, you know, means that you do get it. They want to feel heard. If you say, well, I don't give a shit, what your problem is, deal. that is going to piss someone off more, right? They need that empathy initially. And then from that empathy, you can draw some lines with them, right? When I bounced in bars, oftentimes, drunk guys acting obnoxious, right? They want to get in a fight. The moment you isolate them and get them away from the crowd, they start sobbing about their girlfriend, about their job, about whatever has them pissed off that they're acting out around. So you say, yeah, I hear you. That really sucks. Your boss was being a real jerk. And you almost went to jail over it. Don't give your boss that satisfaction, right? You know, and so you're really working kind of both sides of that, and you may actually have to go back and forth between those two. Yeah? I don't think we need to work this. I think the description is probably good enough for this one. The next one is manipulation. Manipulation is a common one that you have to deal with in a lot of situations. For security, one of the most common one when I was working door was trying to convince me to let them in with alcohol. Was probably the most common situation that people would try to manipulate me around. When I was working in mental health and I was helping people's money, managing people's money who had mental health issues, common thing was they needed an extra $10 early before their check came in, or they needed this or that. You know, when I knew that they were probably going to be using it on the street to buy drugs. And they knew I wasn't supposed to give it to them, and it was just going to be a game back and forth. Oftentimes, somebody who tries to manipulate you is going to sweet talk you first. And they're going to sometimes flip-flop. They're going to come in and be your best friend and be like, you're my favorite security person. You're my favorite person. You're my favorite counselor. I love you so much. You are so much better than all the other people out there. I can't believe how great you are. And then, of course, the conversation comes around to what they want, and they say, hey, so can you do this for me? And then you say, no, and you go, why do you hate me? I can't believe you hate me like this. You know, I've tried to be good to you, right? And so manipulating you from both ends of that spectrum. My experience has been that the longer you give them energy and attention and the longer you let them play this out, the more pissed they're going to be when you finally cut it off. Because they've at that point invested a lot of energy. The thing they're doing is very conscious on some level, you know? And they're going to be genuinely pissed if they invested 20 minutes of their time and don't have anything to show for it. So the trick actually is to just cut it off right from the get-go. And you don't have to be mean about it, you don't have to be anything about it. My mentors in this was every time I go to the DMV, the people behind the desk at the DMV are masters of this, right? So when somebody comes in and tries to manipulate you, go ahead.
Hey, how's it going?
I'm doing pretty good, thank you.
Good. I just need to get in here and get my license renewed. But,
yeah, I'm sorry.
You know,
what do you need? Do you have all the paperwork?
No, I don't have the paperwork today. But
then
you seem a lot more reasonable than this guy over here.
Where you have the paperwork.
There's nothing you can
Please
do for
come
me.
back
Are you sure? You know,
come back
I came
later.
all the way from Oakland.
I have a lot of work to do.
And
please come back later.
Okay.
Thank you. So what I'm doing is I start with a longer sentence and the sentence gets shorter and shorter, right? I start saying, I'm really sorry. I can't let you in with that bottle. I can't let you in. No. Please go. I have other things to do. Go. Now. And it just keeps getting shorter, and that is a way for them to experience the fact that this whole interaction is coming to an end. It gives them a moment to adjust, and it doesn't let them spin themselves into this whole thing about manipulating you in the first place. Yeah? So, the last category is intimidation, and it's almost two categories in my experience. Intimidation, there are people who are straight up bullies who walk through the world getting what they want by intimidating people. And their experiences, because they are big, they can act mean, they can be loud, they're gonna get what they want. Some of those people actually never act on the threats that are either voiced or just implied. And then you have another category of people who use intimidation who are very willing to act on their threats. And those two actually are different categories. And we're going to talk about the first category of people who are straight up bullies first. People who are straight up like willing to act on the violence, oftentimes you'll feel that right away, has been my experience. People who just act loud and obnoxious and are mean and get intimidated, but the impending violence is not quite behind it, might be implied but isn't right in back of that, or oftentimes just blowing a lot of hot steam. They are not willing to pay the price that getting violent would force them to pay. In other words, jail or possibly getting beaten or anything else. Their experience was if they get obnoxious enough, they're going to get what they want. With those people, it's again important to draw a line right away. The difference is with the person who is manipulative, you give them as little energy as possible because you don't want them to feel like their manipulation is working. You're very disinterested. With the person who's intimidating, it is important to focus on them and to end it right away. So, an example, if you're intimidating me, trying to get through the door, just verbally telling me to get out of your way.
Hey man, I need to get in right now.
You can't get in here.
Yeah, I am going to get here right now. It's my job to be inside right now.
A step back.
Who the hell are you, man?
Back.
You ain't nobody. You're just a fucking rent-a-cop, dude.
Do you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you, but I don't care what you're saying.
Back.
I gotta get in there right now. You're not gonna let me in. I'll find someone gonna help me get in there right now.
Get my back up and have you removed. Step back now.
And whatever, man. I'm gonna come back with my buddies, man. I know where you live.
Yeah? So, clear line drawn, right, and going from there. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So, if I really sensed that there was impending violence coming, then the priority shifts to my personal safety, right? At some point, my priority may not be whether or not he gets through that door. My priority may be keeping myself safe. If I thought that that person was actually going to definitely hurt me trying to get through that door, my job is not to keep him from getting through that door, but to get backup that I need in order to deal with them and get them out, right? The door becomes a secondary. Right? So if somebody's just being intimidating and annoying and, they can cuss and do anything else, as long as they walk away, even threatening to bring their friends, all good, right? But if I feel like they're definitely going to go through me physically, I'm going to step aside, grab more help, and then deal with getting them back out, And so that's a really different way. In those situations, obviously if they get physically immediately, I might have to respond physically because the verbal isn't always enough, in those situations. In situations where if you're behind a desk or whatever, keeping the desk between you and somebody who's getting very aggressive immediately, right? Your first priority then is to get someplace safe and to get help. So, that sort of runs the spectrum of situations. People can, of course, shift from one to the other. Somebody can go from being manipulative to being intimidating. Somebody can go from being frustrated to being afraid. People can go all over the map on this, and you're going to have to adjust. The important thing isn't even whether or not you properly assess what's going on with them. The important thing is that you're able to respond with a variety of tools. There are a lot of people who in situations are able to make themselves an ally of someone. There are a lot of people who can draw a really hard line with someone. They are mostly not the same people. People usually have one skill set or the other. And that's why it's important to be able to have skills all across that line. You need to be able to be someone's ally. You need to be able to empathize but draw a line. You need to be able to act disinterested, and you need to be able to draw a hard line. And you need to be able to get yourself to safety. All of those things are things you're going to need to do. In the end, if you assess the situation improperly, you can always shift to using a different tool. Sometimes it's going to be hard. Are they pissed, or are they, are they really frustrated, or are they really afraid? Those can actually, in certain cases, look fairly similar. And so you start by being their ally, you empathize with them a little bit, but if they don't stop spiraling, you draw a line. So you shift and you improvise among these different skill sets. And that's what I was meant in the beginning, where these 4 categories are not going to neatly define everything, but they are the basic tools that are going to that are going to work for most situations. So this chunk is going to be on how to move and some more verbal tools to help you in a confrontation. The first one's going to be broken record, which I've used earlier, which was basically you just repeat what it is you're saying over and over again. This is really useful if someone's not listening. When they're not listening, you're not having a conversation with them. The point is to just clearly state what you need them to do and to repeat it over and over again. And remember, especially if they're drunk, keep it simple. Saying to someone, you know, I'd really like you to leave now because, you know, what you're doing here is very disruptive to the environment and that thing you did earlier really wasn't great. It's like they've missed on that, you know? To say, you need to go now. Go now. Yeah. When their level of functioning is only going to allow them to hear 3 or 4 words, right? So that's, I think, really crucial, is the broken record piece. You can always start the conversation, but when it becomes clear the conversation isn't working, that's a really good thing to default to, you know. So an example of that, right? Somebody's been obnoxious, they're a little drunk, right? I say, I need you to leave now, please. Okay, you're really not being okay here. Can you please go?
Oh man, come on, just hang out.
I need you to
buddies. You're waiting for me to come back.
Go now.
Walk
that way.
It's just right
Look
over
at me.
there, man.
Can you see
Come
me?
on, can't you be cool?
I need you to walk this way.
Why are you so uncool, dude?
Please walk this way.
I just need to go inside.
Walk that
Come
way
on,
now.
Man. I've been
Go
waiting for this all day
now.
and stuff, man.
Go now.
Ah.
So, you know, as obnoxious as it is, if you notice, I did not, one of the mistakes, by the way, I find oftentimes with people is they lay their hands on people too soon. There's a tremendous desire to grab someone who's not listening to you at all. And that desire is really understandable. And you have to think about sort of what, in the end, is really more efficient and safer. If it takes me minutes of repeating myself to get someone to leave under their own power, that is far simpler and far more efficient than having to chuck someone out of there who's struggling, could be injury to them, injury to me, create a huge disruption, you know? When really, how much time have you spent like listening to some stupid drunk person telling you why they shouldn't leave? If you spend 10 minutes on that and then get them out of there, that is time well spent in reference, in comparison to the other options. Maybe not time well spent in your life, but time well spent in comparison to the time they could be spending in the hospital, you could be spending in a courtroom, and so on and so forth. Does that make sense? It is very important to focus on what is going to get the job done in the big picture with the least amount of disruption to everyone. Because I think, and this is where oftentimes people who do policing and security fall down, is that somebody not listening to it becomes too much of a threat to your authority. This is not about your authority. This is about getting it done. In order to get it done, if you have to look a little pointless and stupid sometimes, but you get it done, who cares? It's going to feel very aggravating. You're going to need a lot of patience, and that's part of the job. And that is still better than hurting someone or hurting yourself. I've had a lot of people come back, after they really acted out drunk in a place, and come back on the next day and really apologize and and say that they were really sorry and they just had a really bad day and been really drunk. And that happens. And the thing I really try to hold in those moments is what I am like on the worst of my days. And that everyone has bad moments and bad days. And I may just be seeing them on that bad day, A funny aside, again, just to keep that in mind, many years ago, about 15 years ago, I met this woman at a party. She was immediately very friendly. We hit it off, she ended up asking me out, and I was like, I get this feeling I know you from somewhere. And she said, yeah, you know why I knew you were a great guy? I said, why? I said, because I was really obnoxious and drunk in a club and tried to hit someone with a bottle, and you talked me out of it, took the bottle out of my hand, and walked me out of the club and got me a taxi home without thumping my head, even though I was swinging at you and cursing and kicking people and everything else. And I'm really sorry about that. And she was a really fabulous person,
Nice.
So, yeah. So it's just important. You never know, right? So, broken record, right? The other thing is redirection, right? Redirection is when you get someone focused on something else other than what it is they are totally honed in on. Oftentimes that may be they're really pissed at someone, right? And if, for example, he is really pissed at that person right there, right? Part of what I want to do is redirect him towards me or something else. And say,
Hey buddy, what are you doing, man? Why are you fucking looking at me, man? Hey,
Talk to me.
What's up? What's up?
Talk to me.
What's up?
I know you're really angry at this person, but look at me. Look at me. Okay. I need you to think about the fact that if you're about to get in a fight here, you're going to end up in jail. Do you understand that?
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, he's talking
Your
shit. He's talking
friends,
a bunch of shit to me,
look
man.
at your
Look at it.
girlfriend
Look at it.
here. She really wants you to come home tonight. Yes? She does not want to be bailing you out of a cell. So will you please take her and go away, and he's going to do the same thing. Okay? You stand over there. Okay. Please go over there and hang out with her.
Alright.
Right? So redirecting the person back towards something that's going to be more functional, right? The whole thing about redirecting someone towards their friends, particularly if they're trying to hold them back as well, redirecting them towards a partner, right? If their partners and friends are egging them on, obviously that is not the best choice, right? But redirecting them towards, I had two guys about getting ready to be in a fight, and I stepped in, I said, do you see there's a police car right there? And they went, huh? And there was. And I said, so, how long do you think your fight's gonna last and how that's gonna go? And they went, okay, well, thanks, dude. And that was it, right? Redirecting them towards, because when people's adrenaline is up, they have tunnel vision, mentally and physically. And you need to get them to undo that, right? And get them to remember that there are other things in the world besides the one conflict they're finding themselves in right now. Do you really want to spend tomorrow in jail? Aren't you supposed to be going to work probably? That kind of thing. So redirection also becomes really important. Just changing the script a bit too, right? So they're not sure what's, where you're going with this, and they go, yeah, but, So physically, one of my rules is don't keep backing up. When someone comes at you, if you keep backing up, eventually you're gonna trip over something or run into a wall. It also makes them feel like they are backing you up. On the other hand, holding your ground totally firmly against someone who's being very aggressive means you're gonna get in real close real quick. So one of the things I do is I circle. I know what is over here in space. So as somebody comes in at me, right, I just start circling them. And now I know what's behind me. I know I'm able to keep track of the environment. This means they're not walking me into their friends. This means I'm not going to run out of space. And I have found, circling with drunk people, aside from being amusing, it makes it really hard for them to stay focused because the tunnel vision and their drunkenness makes them very linear, and they start to get dizzy once you've gone around about once or twice, right? And it makes them slower. And if you notice, as I circle, I make the circle slightly tighter. What I'm actually doing is getting behind the person. And so if I need to get in and actually get physical with them, I'm no longer in front of them. You don't need to do it fast, just very slowly, circle, right? I found that to be really, really useful because I'm usually, I'll give somebody a step or two going backwards, but then there's always that thing about like, okay, where do you go then? And again, I try to keep from getting physical if at all possible, so this buys me more time to try other strategies for de-escalating somebody verbally. Yeah? Okay, good. Teamwork. So, we have our friendly front beam here that we're going to go after. Large, very immovable, but we're going to try and manage it. First, we're going to talk about verbal teamwork. When somebody, by the way, a really good thing to practice when you're doing all this is just to stand there and just have somebody harass you and cuss at you while you try and talk someone down. That is an invaluable thing for anyone to practice. I don't care if you're ever going to do security work, I don't care. At some point, your patience is going to get tested in exactly that way in your life, whether it's in a relationship, whether it's whatever. So just standing there and just using this and say, you know, I hear you, but can you please lower your voice? You know, whatever your particular short response is going to be, and just have them, not for 10 minutes, but for 1 to 2 minutes, just have them hammer you. And just see what that brings out in you, you know? So the first drill I used to do around that is one person stands there, and and you can play this 2 different ways. The second person is here at your shoulder. The reason you want them at the shoulder is because if we're standing like this, then this person is going to feel ganged up on. Yes? Immediately feel ganged up on. Yeah? Even if we're kind of standing side by side this way, you know, this feels very intimidating. You want it to be clear who they're engaging with. So if you could, they're going to stand at my shoulder. The message this gives is that they're interacting with me, but that I have backup. Yeah? And this person doesn't have to say, and shouldn't actually at this point, say anything. The message is clear as an implied, and so I'm talking to this person. And so one of 2 things is going to happen. I have a phrase that I have, that's my safe word, which says, I'm done talking to this person, please come in. Which for me used to be, I can't talk to you about this anymore. And then this person taps me on the shoulder, and that is my signal that they're paying attention, and they're going to step forward and engage this person at that point. Yeah? And then deal with them, right? The other way to play this, if they notice that I'm losing my cool, and then I start to go, look, I'm really tired of what, you know, they're going to again tap me on the shoulder, which means I step back. And it's really important to play this out with each other, so when you get tapped on that shoulder, you don't go, leave me, you know, right? Because you need to trust that person who has your back, that you're going to step back. If you disagree with them, you can work that out with them later. In that moment, they, just like you would, get the call. Yeah? They don't get to tap you just because they have a clever idea for how to deal with the person. They only get to tap you if they think that you are losing the thread. Yeah? Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So they're not going to come in and you're both not going to talk at the person, because somebody who can't even barely hear you is definitely not going to hear 2 people. It'll just be gibberish to them. Yeah? So it's very important that they let you keep going until A, either you are done and use your phrase and get out, or B, until they tap you because they feel like you're losing your cool. Yeah? So at that point, they step in and do it, and then I stand back here. And when I'm back here, it's important not to feel super engaged in a conversation. I pay attention, but I'm using that time to bring myself back down. Because no matter how controlled and how good I felt, this is a time to regain my own patience. Because I may need to step back in. There are times with drunk, obnoxious people where I've had to go 2 or 3 times. Mm-hmm. Because, you know, let's say it's not your first person of the night you're dealing with. Let's say it's not your 4th person of the night you're dealing with, right? And so you want to switch up every 2 or 3 minutes, you know? And let's say that they keep going for 10 minutes. You might have to switch out a few times. But this means you can both keep your cool and then go from there, right? And that makes that super simple. Yeah? So that's one way of thinking about working in a team. The other way of working in a team, if you think chances are pretty good, you're gonna have to get physical. This person is gonna engage that person from the front, and they're going to try and de-escalate them verbally. I am going to come from their diagonal rear. It's a little hard to see here. I'm going to get something that shows where the front of the person is. So that this is going to be the front of the person. Yes? So he's talking to the person, de-escalating them. And what I'm doing is I'm coming in over here. I'm not going to get too close. I'm actually going to stay out of reach. You know? But I am going to stand just right here fairly unobtrusively. I'm watching him, and I'm keeping an eye on this person as well. Again, we have a signal. My signal used to be, it is time for you to leave. Right? I would say other things like, please leave and so forth. I need you to go, right? But when I would say, it is time for you to leave, that was a cue for my partner to come in and help them leave. What I would do at that point, if someone said that, is I would come in and place a hand on the elbow and on the shoulder. I'm not putting on a lock, I'm not putting on anything, I'm just touching them. And I say, could you please walk this way? I'm not coming up behind them and attacking them and sending them through the roof, adrenaline-wise. I'm going to approach them and actually let them sense me coming in and just say, excuse me, you're going to need to go. What they're going to have a tendency to do is to turn towards me. At which point, he is to their side. We are now both at the side of this person, which is where we want to be, to move them to go. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. So that is another way of thinking about coming at a single person. The third way of coming at a group, this is two people getting in a fight, right? The tendency is to step in between. The problem with stepping in between is it's easy to get hit from both sides. They can still reach each other. You are literally in the middle of things. Instead, let's say they haven't gotten physical yet and we're going to try to de-escalate them. I'm going to come from this diagonal and you're going to come from that diagonal. And the idea is that way we can easily see each other. We're going to approach them and we're going to stay just out of reach and say, hey, you, I need you to not be doing this in here. You need to go outside. At the same time, he's going to be doing the same thing with the other person. I'm going to take my person this way, he's going to take his person that way, and we're going to go off in other directions. As I take this person, I'm going to keep them in sight a little bit, just in case that person starts to poke this way, you know? Because I don't want to get clobbered in the back of the head, and I don't want this other person to either, you know? What I do want also to do is, one of the things that one of their immediate reactions when you do this is initially they're going to feel really angry that you have interfered in their whole game. So they're going to say, stay out of this is none of your business, get out of here, you know. But what they're going to discover really quickly is if I'm standing here at the diagonal rear of someone, like if you would be that person, they're fighting this person. What they have to choose now, I'm still out of reach, but they're very conscious of the fact that I'm at their back. They have a choice. If they turn towards me and start to get pissed at me, that person is at their back. If they keep facing that person, I am at their back. They are now in a no-win solution. Yeah? There's not a win there for them. They're going to be very pissed about that, but they're going to start to process that fairly quickly. And if there's two of us doing that, both of those people are not in a situation they're going to be able to win. And so oftentimes at that point, they'll start cussing at each other, cussing at us, and make a big show, but they're much more likely at that point are ready to walk away. Because unlike that thing where I'm in the middle and they can still swing at each other, if they start taking swings at each other, they have a decent sense that I'm going to come in from behind, which no one is going to find amusing and want to happen. So that is one way of thinking about that, of trying to get people apart that way. My usual initial approach is simply, if I have to lay hands on someone, it's just to touch the shoulder and to touch the elbow. The elbow, because the elbow also controls the hip. If the person turns in towards me, I'm controlling the arm closest to me, and it limits the amount they can turn. I'm also controlling the spine, so forth this way. Yeah. So I have a lot of control. It also allows me through compression between those two things to control some chunk of their body. And I haven't done anything fancy yet. Yeah. There's also a pressure point here, right? And then there's the ulnar pressure point here. And when I put both of those together, right, I already have something that is not going to injure anyone, right? But that is going to give me some level of control over their body. Mm-hmm. In the situation where we were coming from both sides, the way we would do that is I would come from this side and the other person would come from this side, and we would shove the person's elbows together,
pretzel,
right? And then just take their neck and move them, right? Locks and everything are good and very useful, but the problem you always have potentially is busting someone's arm. With this, that's not going to happen. This is not going to be as successful with somebody who's really dead set on fighting you to the end. And so then you really got to go somewhere else. But for a lot of people who are just, if you got two people on someone like that, you can move them out and the chance of harm is almost none. We used to do this more kind of going after a single arm and stuff. One of the reasons I went to the neck is German people have a tendency to fall down. You can control where that head goes, right? So this is not just for getting the mastoid process. It's also for when they slip and fall on their butt, you can make sure the back of their head doesn't crack against something, right?
That's a good point.
Half the work, right? Just keeping them from hurting each other and themselves, right? So we've now separated two people, right? And are walking them out in specific directions, yeah? So if one person is clearly more aggressive, you just order the less aggressive person to go out and then both of you walk the person that's more aggressive out if that person's clearly started the fight and is more invested in it. It's important to be careful about that. Don't make a really hasty assessment about that based on someone's size, someone's ethnicity, anything else like that, right? We all come with a host of preconceptions, and it's important to know your preconceptions well. I had one of the scariest moments. It was in a health setting. I had two people who were starting to get into it. I was trying to head it off before they really got into it. They were out on a sort of landing, wooden landing in an old Victorian. I came out. There was a really big guy who had started to grab a small guy. I made an assumption that he was the aggressor. I went in after him, pulled him off the smaller guy, started to secure him, and the little guy, who I later had found out had started the whole thing, came flying at both of us. And all three of us went down a whole flight of stairs. And so that was an example of me just not taking that one extra second to really look at the smaller guy, and notice the level of his aggression and not keeping enough track of him. So be careful about making really hasty judgments. As a matter of fact, in most situations, when people are about to get in a fight, you have a second or so, or two or three, to actually try and assess what the hell is really happening. And it's important to really take a close look and bring yourself down and judge the situation with what you can see, not what you think you see. The other thing to remember, if people really get physical with each other, there's a tremendous desire to immediately get them apart because you don't want to escalate, other people to jump in and all that. Sometimes the best thing you can do is just let two people hit each other and make sure no one else gets involved. They are going to be most excited about fighting for the first minute to a minute and a half of a fight. And that is when they both are going to figure out that it hurts and that they're getting very tired. And they're going to be much easier to pull apart after about a minute and a half to 2 minutes than they are going to be in the first 10 to 20 seconds of that fight. I used to reserve this especially for if I had two fairly in shape young guys who had found each other to do what I call consensual violence, because there is such a thing, right? We pretend like it's always someone picks a fight. It's like you have two people who are going to commit consensual violence. They're both looking for a fight. They found one. on some level, well, good for them. You know, it becomes a problem when anyone else gets involved, when it becomes a bigger thing, when people or things get destroyed or injured, you know, then it becomes more of an issue. And obviously you want to keep it from escalating. But in that moment, the best thing you might be able to do is to send away the people who are egging them on and to keep other people from jumping in. And then when they get tired, they are surprisingly easy to pull apart. Yes, they're going to cuss. Yes, they're going to promise to finish up the other person and this and that and the other. But by that time, they're done. Oftentimes, also it's usually not even a minute. It's usually about 30 to 40 seconds. One person will be done, if not both. Or they'll be in a clinch and it'll be a totally neutral situation. So when you pull them apart, it'll take a little bit of effort, but they've both done what they're, you know, they can both tell amazing stories to their friends about how tough they are. And that's what they were really after, you know. This, of course, is very different from a situation where someone is clearly getting assaulted with someone who has no interest in being in the situation, right? And then it's really important to intervene quickly, right? If someone's getting aggressive with someone who clearly doesn't want to be in a physical confrontation, then yeah, then it's going to be clear also where and how to step in that situation. So, yeah, good.